Okay, now I'm gonna do my favorite books because I'm sitting here already and I was planning on doing it, and then I decided to make it 2 videos because do I need a video that's 40 minutes long right now? Probably not. And again, I do feel like people watch these videos like best of and worst of for different reasons. So let's find my note where I put my favorite books of the year. Let's see how many there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12, 13. And now I only have 4 nonfiction, I guess. And all of them I read for BookTube Prize. So the first one is Crying in H Mart, which is a memoir by Michelle Zauner. I guess I should do this so I can put the picture over here. And oh boy, this book just really, 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 I could not stop crying when I read this book. And I'm just gonna start crying thinking about it right now. Basically, anytime there's a mother-daughter relationship, I'm gonna cry. Okay? I mean, not any mother-daughter relationship. Obviously, like when I watch Gilmore Girls, the relationship between Lorelai and Emily, that does not make me cry, because that's not that's not something that I relate to, that relationship. But there are certain relationships that I just like, mother-daughter times, that I like. They just like makes me so sad because like it just reminds me of like so many feelings and emotions I have towards my own mother. And I don't know, it's just like, it's like not touching a nerve, but it's like hitting me in like a very vulnerable spot, I guess. Cause my mom is literally the most important person in my life, besides Jake, but my mom, you know, like, I mean, they're both very important, but like I've known my mom longer, let's all be honest. So it's really hard for me to again read certain things, especially, you know, her mom's dying of cancer. My mom is not dying of cancer. That is not one of the similarities between the relationships. It's more like there's this certain like feeling of like, you know, not wanting to disappoint your parent, and like your parent trying so hard. Oh, crap. My mom watches these videos too, so it's gonna be pretty awkward. But anyways, there's a very specific relationship. I can't quite describe it to you, but I've lately I've been seeing it a lot reflected in media and stuff. And so again, the tears are not like, they're not sad tears. They're more like just pure emotion. So I was feeling a lot of that when I was reading the book. So I don't know, that might not really sell it because I couldn't really like view the book in any other way besides that, like besides like seeing like me and my mom. But yeah, and I will say though, the food parts were super good and like made me want to eat food so much. A lot of the book is talking about, you know, it's called Crying in H Mart, so like being in H Marts and like just all kinds of food talk, and that made me really hungry like a lot of the time. Then we have Little Devil. Oh, well, let me. No, that's not the right button. That's the right button. A Little Devil in America by Hanif Abdurraqib, and this was just, have I read a book better written than this in my life? Absolutely not. This is the most well-written book I have ever read in my whole life. The writing is so good. I don't understand how a person can have such an amazing brain. Like his brain, it's amazing. Like he's so, I wonder, I'm sure he teaches somewhere, right? I would love to take a class by him because he's just like, dang, he is so good. But it's, you know, it's in praise of Black performance, so it goes through various different aspects of, you know, Black performers. I can't like think of any specific examples right now. The only thing I can think of is the game Spades, which I know is not like a Black performer, but it's part of Black culture. And yeah, so he interweaves like personal history, like actual history, and then also like social commentary, and it's just phenomenal, and it just flows so well. And I'm gonna reread that probably this year because it was killer. It was so good. Then we have Chasing Me to My Grave by Winfred Rembert. So sorry. And this is just like, also, I just like, I'm so glad that BookTube Prize made me read it. It's basically the story. It's the story of Winfred like growing up in the Jim Crow South and becoming an artist. Well, he becomes an artist, and so he kind of interweaves the story of his life with these beautiful, beautiful pieces of art. I forget, I think it's on leather maybe, that he makes them, so it's very texturally appealing too. Like they're beautiful, and also obviously they're like heartbreaking because they're about, you know, Black people working in the South and like picking cotton and all this kind of stuff, and like lynchings and all of that. So it is a rough read. I'm not gonna say you're gonna like read the book and feel like super, super great afterwards. Although it does end, he does a really good job of like kind of bringing it back around, like talking about his wife and like that kind of stuff. So there is like positivity in it, but in general, the story is extremely heavy, but so, so well done. And the artwork is just, you will like it's mind blowing. If hopefully I am able to put pieces of art to show you here too. I guess I could get my book, but it's in the other room and I'm just being so lazy. So yeah, 100% recommend. It's heavy because it's like the nice glossy pages, which you want in an art book. Because I mean, it's not technically an art book, but there is much art in it, so it's nice to have those beautiful, beautiful pictures. The last of my favorite nonfiction books is How the Word is Passed, by Clint Smith. This book also was just absolutely fantastic, super, super well done, going and looking at different areas of American history with slavery, like where slavery was specifically, and talking to the people that he encounters in these locations and asking them questions, and, you know, experiencing whatever the thing is, like if it's a tour or whatever, but then also asking the people that he's there with questions. And it's really, really fascinating. It's, again, so well done. So, 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 so well done. My only issue with the book was like I did not love some of the writing parts. He did get like overly descriptive, I think, when he was describing certain people, like the guides, or, you know, the people that he was meeting. And, you know, I'm sure it was to kind of like present some kind of picture of what kind of person they are, or like what they look like, or like, you know, so that maybe you're like making a judgment of what you think, because we all make judgments based on what people look like, of what we think that their response is going to be or what they're going to say. And then I don't know if that's why, but it just, that doesn't work for me. I don't like overly descriptive um descriptions. I don't like it when the people in books are like, you know, wearing the white shirt and the lace up boots and the high ponytail and blah blah blah. It doesn't work for me. So that part unfortunately was a little bit of a letdown, but in general the book was, it should really be required reading. I'm going to say for like freshmen or sophomores in high school. It was so good. Then let's see, we've got some fiction books. All right, so I'm gonna finish this video now. Sorry, I started my favorites video right after I filmed my least favorites video, and I just got so exhausted. I could not continue. So I'm here to finish. I already talked about my non-fiction favorites, and I'm gonna actually just redo all of my fiction favorites, and I am going to rank them. So I decided, since I was gonna have to refilm this, that I am going to just do that. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'll start with number 7, and then I'll work my way up to number 1. Number 7 is Clara and the Sun by KAZUO Ishiguro. Ishiguro. I don't know why that sounds weird coming out of my mouth, but that's okay. Oh my gosh, this book was so good. So I previously read 2 books by him, Never Let Me Go, which I loved, and then A Pale View of the Hills, or A Pale View of Hills, which I did not love. That was a 2-star read for me. So I was kind of nervous because I wasn't sure what to expect. A Pale View of the Hills was his debut book, though, so I was like a little hopeful that I would like this, but I don't think that I had heard great things about his The Buried Giant, I think. So anyways, I guess that doesn't really matter about this book. But yeah, I absolutely loved it. It has that same, I don't know. Again, there's certain authors when they write books that you can like, you know, they just have this vibe of their book. So reading this, it did feel very similar to Never Let Me Go, and like the sensation while I was reading it, just like very quiet, very slow, just like very intentional. I thought it was phenomenal. We're following Clara, I guess. Yeah, it's called Clara and the Sun. Probably shouldn't have to think about that. Clara, who's an artificial friend, which is basically like an AI robot. We're living in some kind of, you know, world where that is a thing. And she is just, you know, patiently waiting in the store waiting to be bought by people. And so she's making observations on humans as they're walking by and coming into the store. The best spot is in the window, obviously, because, you know, people can see you and so they're drawn in, but also they get their, what's it called? They get, like energy from the sun. Wow, they're solar energied. I can't talk right now. So it's just like, you know, the best spot to be. But there's this whole, you know, the whole beginnings of the book are just her internal dialogue and like her observing people, and it's just fantastic. And then eventually she does get bought, and then that just kind of takes the story into a whole nother realm of, you know, what it means to love someone, what it means to be human. You know, how far would you go for someone that you love? There's also class elements involved. And yeah, it was really, I was very, very pleasantly surprised. I really loved this. I gave it 4 stars. Only 2 of my favorite books are 5-star reads, which I think is funny. My next favorite is Passing by Nella Larson. I don't remember when I read this, like when in the year I read it, but I had been meaning to read it forever. Okay, not literally forever, but like at least 5 years. We're following the story of, gosh, I just don't remember anyone's names. Claire, who is a light-skinned African-American woman, and she, you know, runs into an old childhood friend, Irene, who is passing. So I don't know what I thought the book was going to be about. I didn't realize that it was going to be from the perspective of the non-passing woman, but it is from the perspective of the non-passing woman. So again, they're both African-American women. They're both light-skinned, and one is like, you know, involved in the Black community. Her husband is Black, and, you know, her children are Black, obviously. And, you know, she's just, you know, living her life. And then she runs into Irene, who is married to a white racist man, who does not know that she is Black, obviously. And it's just so intense. It is so intense. Their relationship is extremely fraught. I am definitely on Team Claire, not on Team Irene. And yeah, Irene kind of like involves herself more and more and more into Claire's world and life. And you kind of see the effects, because it's a lot of like internal things. There's not, yeah, I mean, there's a lot that's going on in the book, but I feel like it's a very, again, you're in someone's head, and so you're experiencing everything from their perspective. But at the same time, since you are experiencing everything from her perspective, it could be that Irene is not being as like, she seems just very like, not sneaky, but yeah, maybe sneaky. But it could be that she's not, and it's just, you know, Claire's perspective. Who knows? But either way, Claire won me over. And yeah, so it's just, you get kind of like, Irene, like, back off, like, this isn't your life, like, you know. But also Irene is, you know, trapped in a horrible situation, so you do feel bad for her too. The book is just fantastic. The ending is like very ambiguous. I think Jake listened to it on audio maybe, and then also I watched the movie later with my group of friends that we watch movies with online. And I feel like there's a lot of ambiguity in the ending, which I really like too. I like my version of how things end personally the best, but you know, it's because it's my version of how things end. But I really like that when things are not wrapped up very neatly. So this book provides that, and I just thought it was fantastic. Next, is The Ice Palace by Tarjei Vesas, translated by Elizabeth Roken. And this was another slow, I guess I like have a vibe that I like. Very quiet, very slow, very pensive kind of book. We're following 2 little girls, and for the okay, well, again, we're following one little girl who's kind of like, you know, popular and fun, and everyone's having a good time. And then a new little girl comes to the school, and then she's like, come be friends with us. And the other girl's like, nah, I'm cool. I'm going to be by myself. But there's this connection that the 2 girls have. And so they go to one of the girls' house after school. I think the new girl maybe like has recently been orphaned or something like that. And so she's staying with a grandparent or an aunt or something. So they go to her house, and then they have this like encounter that, again, is very ambiguous. You don't know what happens. It's not spelled out. It feels like there's some kind of romantic thing between the two of them that maybe they're both embarrassed by or like ashamed of and something. And so they, get flustered and separate. Then one of the girls goes on they're about to have a field trip to the ice palace, and so the girl decides to go by herself for some reason, and it's just like I can't even think about it anymore because I'm gonna start crying. It's so good, and no one talks about this book on BookTube, which really makes me sad, because it is phenomenal. When was it written? It was written in 1963, so maybe that's why, because everyone likes reading new books. I don't know. But it was so incredible. I'm curious. I don't think that I gave away a copy of this when I was doing my monthly wrap-up, so I'm curious what book I gave away that I liked more than this. But to be honest, I also don't think I liked it this much right when I read it. I think this is kind of like a feeling that has developed over time. There's some books that you just can't shake, and this is one of them. It's just absolutely phenomenal. Then we have Brickmakers by Selva Almada, translated by Annie McDermott. And this one is the story of two families of brickmakers that basically hate each other. We start off with two young men that have fatally wounded each other, and so they're laying dying, and then we go back to kind of see how they got there. But it goes back and forth between, the story of their families, specifically their fathers, and how their fathers have gotten to the place of just really hating each other, and also then going back to these young men as they're dying and having these thoughts and stuff. So it's one of those books that I personally really like, books that aren't told in very boring basic narratives. I like things that are structurally interesting when I'm reading, and this was very structurally interesting. The writing was really good. Yeah, I thought it was fantastic, and I need to hold on while we're sitting here. Let me look at her list of books. I don't think I've read. Oh, I have read something else. Oh yeah, Dead Girls. She wrote Dead Girls too. I definitely like Brickmakers more than Dead Girls, which is funny because I gave Dead Girls 5 stars, but I think it's because it's nonfiction and it's very sad. She has more. I need them all. Okay. Next is How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accents by Julia Alvarez. This is... Okay. I'm so sorry. How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accents. I'm having some allergies. My eyes itch so bad. So here we are telling the story of an American Dominican American family. It's we're following 4 girls, the Garcia girls, and it goes, it goes chronologically backwards in time. So we start off with one of the sisters, I don't remember who, and then we just, kind of get story after story after story. So each chapter is kind of like an individual piece on its own, but together they tell the narrative of this family in backwards chronological order of how they got to where they are, because of course they're Dominicans, and so they were living in the Dominican Republic when Trujillo was the dictator, and their father was involved in a plot to assassinate Trujillo, and so it's such an intense book, especially because it starts off the whole book is, I guess, relatively lighthearted, but you see a lot of just a lot of family drama, I guess. So there's a lot of, stuff between the sisters. There's stuff between the sisters and their parents. And so you kind of see that from different perspectives. And again, it goes back in time. And then you get to the point where, again, that they're all going to survive because they all are in the present narrative that we started off with. But it's just, it gets quite intense towards the end of the book when it's getting to that point, the beginning, I guess, of why they had to flee the DR to go to the United States. So I think it was fantastic. I need to read more of her books. And yeah, it just it was really, really good. Let's see. Let me see if I... Yeah. yeah, sorry, I'm just remembering a little bit more. Anyways, number 2 is The Art of Losing by Alice Zeniter, translated by Frank Wynn. And this is another story of like an immigrant family, I guess. I read these 2 books like very close to each other, and I loved them both very much. So I was just like, man, this is the kick that I'm on right now, I guess. So this also tells a story of, I guess, intergenerational trauma based on war and all of that kind of stuff. This is French and Algeria, though. So we start off, I think we start off with the main, oh, this is in French, this description, that's not helpful. The girl, whose name I don't remember, just like a little bit though. And then we go back in time to her grandfather living in Algeria during the French occupation of Algeria. And, you know, basically all the stuff he had to do to survive. Like, you know, it is not cut and dry. It is not easy. Like, obviously, you know, if you're Algerian, you know, you don't want to be occupied and you don't want people like taking rights away from you. But also, like, if you're, you know, a dude, you want to like protect your family. So he did a lot of things that were not like super great. He did a lot of like fraternizing with the enemy, aka the French people that were there. And because of that, once France left, his family was kind of like, you know, in danger. So then they had to flee Algeria. And so they go, so then the, you know, so we're experiencing the grandfather and like his situation during that war, well, during the occupation, the war, and then like right when, you know, I don't really actually remember 100% what happened during the war, like why France left, but I assume the Algerians just like won. I don't know. Anyways, I guess that's besides the point. And then the next section, we see her father growing up, you know, I mean, what are they called? Like in like displacement camps, in like when you go, when you're, you know, I forget what they're called, but like these, you know, these camps that they put people in before they can find housing for them. It's horrendous. And so his whole trauma of that, and then you see she's, you know, her story is the last story. And then, you know, you get a person who is, you know, of Algerian descent, living in France, so otherized, but then also not really of Algeria because she was born and raised in France and that's all she knows. So it's this, and again, I really, these are the stories that like I just, you know, like the most. And it was just so good. And like her trying to go back to Algeria and all that stuff. Like, I feel like I've told you a lot of the story, but I don't really think that matters because, I mean, you know, I'm just telling you what happens vaguely in each. You have to read it. It's so good. You have to read it. And it's also really funny. She calls out autofiction at some point, which her book is, which is just so funny to me. So yeah, I absolutely loved that book. I don't think I gave too much of that away. You know, you can disagree with me if you want. But I think it is important because each section tells such a different story, but like they're all related to each other. Like all the stories are, you know, it's one family's, it's like just a family saga. It's so good. And then my favorite nonfiction, or my favorite fiction that's kind of sort of nonfiction, is Virgin with a Memory, the exhibition tie-in by Sophia Al Maria. She is from Qatar. She is a artist, I guess, and she was trying to make a rape revenge movie, and it did not happen. It fell through. So this book is the story of it's the rape revenge movie that she wanted to tell, interspersed with emails, diary entries, like nonfiction things about her interaction with people trying to make the movie actually happen. So it's so interesting. Again, it's like not a very like, you know, cut and dry, here we go. It takes kind of a minute to realize that's what's happening. Some of the font is italicized and some of it is not. And so I forget which is which, but the one of them that's italicized or non-italicized is the like, you know, fictional story, and the other one is the non-fictional elements of the book that are her trying to get. Wait, I was just like wasn't paying attention to what I was saying. You know what I'm saying. Yep. And yeah, I just loved that book. I have her memoir, but I don't know where it is, but I'd like to read it. I think it's a memoir. I don't know. It's somewhere, and I'm going to read it. I would like to read it actually very, very soon. So maybe I'll put it on my list for next month. So yeah, those are my favorite books of the year. If you have read any of them and would like to talk about them, please comment down below. And if you please, just read all of them. Like, they are really, really good books. And the Virgin with a Memory book, there's not that many more copies of that exist of that book. I actually was getting kind of nervous because I might just go buy them all. That would be so selfish of me. But there's not that many copies. I cleaned out Blackwell's, and I think Book Depository has maybe a handful of them left. So there's not that more that exists. So if you are at all interested, I would literally go buy it right now before someone else snatches it up. And yeah, this video is probably so long and I apologize, but thanks for watching. And I hope everyone has really good reads in, oh, and tell me your favorite book of 2022. That's what people say at the end of these videos. What was your favorite book of 2022? Tell me. I'll talk to you later. Bye.